could give a quick 5-minute instancing.
That would be great. Yeah.
So I'm going to show a really quick sort of advanced feature for geometry. It's called geometry instancing. It's actually a feature of your GPU and your graphics card. What it allows you to do is upload a single object or a single piece of geometry to your GPU as a set of polygons and points, and then what you can do is send another set of information to your GPU that says, I want to create an instance of that geometry at every single one of these locations. So this is the it's a feature of GPUs that like video game engineers use when they want to create like grass or rain or anything where there's like lots of a single type of object at once. It's like a really high performance way to do it, and touch exposes that to you, so you can benefit from that. So I'm just going to create a noise torus. Let's facet it. Okay. So if you don't use instancing and you want to create lots of something, you have to use the copy sop, which I showed you guys yesterday. And copy sop is fine, but it's really slow because it's all done on the CPU. So let's take a sphere. I'm just going to demonstrate the slowdown that happens with this because it's pretty severe. So you can see now it's like taking 87 milliseconds or whatever to render all these. And you can't even see them because they're so big. But I mean, it looks cool, but it's really slow. So to do geometry instancing, it's actually a tab in every geocomp at the top here. It's instance. So you have to turn instancing on. But before I do that, I'm going to create a chop, because that's how instancing works, is you use chops to define your X, Y, and Z positions. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a noise chop. And I'm going to change the number of the channels to be, instead of chan 1, I'm going to type in TX, TY, and TZ. So now I've got 3 channels. So I've got 600 frames, which means that when I feed this into my geometry instancing, I'm going to get 600 toruses. So before I do that, I'm going to put a null here. Okay, so now we're ready. I'm going to turn instancing on. The XForm chop parameter field opens up, and now I can drag this operator there. And now I can type in TX, TY, and TZ. And it's still pretty slow. Man, it's not very good. It is a lot faster than CPU, but for some reason it's really slow. Let's do boxes. So now let's move our noise around a little bit here. And we got to increase the range. So drop the math in 0 to 1. There we go. And if I want to change the rotation, I can also do that, but I'm going to create a different noise channel to do that, set of noise channels. So now instead of TX, TY, and TZ, I'm going to do RX, RY, and RZ. And these need to be a little bit different because I need to scale my my values in my noise to negative 180 to 180, so that I get full rotation. So now all I have to do is put a merge, which allows me to combine all of my channels into a single chop. And now all I have to do is define my rotation channels. So now I've got something that's a little bit more interesting. And then I can, just you can just play around with all the parameters to get something that you like.
Could you go back to what's inside the geometry as far as how those channels are being used to control the point locations inside the container or geometry container?
Well, there's nothing in here now. It's just a box. It's just a simple box. That's all. That's the only thing that's inside of the geometry component. The magic is by clicking on the instancing, turning instancing on. And what I've done is on the left here, these are all the different things that you can change per instance. So I can change the position, I can change the rotation, and I can change the scale. And I can also add custom texture mapping coordinates to each instance. So you can get a lot of variety really quickly. And if I want to change the number, all I have to do is change the length of my channel. So instead of 600, let's do 1200. Or
you can express the channel in not in seconds, but in
yeah, you can do it in frames.
Samples.
Sure.
Right, that could be.
Yeah, samples. So I've got 4,800 boxes right now.
Try to non-animating chorus
Without animating it?
yeah, without animating it, and maybe not mesh with polygons. I don't know, something like that.
I think it's just the number of vertices, though, frankly. Even if I don't animate the torus.
Yeah, cool.
It's like totally tripping out.
Oh.
Bad news. So yeah, there are limits.
It's actually mostly the geo viewer.
Yeah, right? Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, versus the render? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The geo viewer does it on the CPU.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, I want a T-shirt that says that.
What would be the advantage of most of the copy?
Copy does it all in the CPU, and it bogs down way sooner. Instancing is basically the fastest way to do lots of something at once. We use that on a lot of jobs. Oh wow! What the hell?
Wow.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Wow, that actually worked. So you want me to render that? Oops. Damn it. It's still pretty slow,
It's still slow, so it's still something.
but I'm rendering like 5,000 of them. I mean, let me change the density.
Some nice dancing test turns. Yeah.
Fewer numbers, less job.
Yeah, it's working. What do we want to do? Performance. So performance is always an issue. This is a really common trick. Dropping a perform chop, putting a trail on it so you can see a graph of your frames per second. So if I want to speed these up, that's weird. Didn't really speed up at all. So I just dropped it to 1200 and my frames per second jumped up to 100. Or The other thing you can, if you look at the perform chart, there's tons of things you can look at: frame time, amount of GPU RAM used, GPU temperature, which is useful. There's tons of things you can do, and there's also a performance monitor, which what this does is it shows you a list of all of the operators that exist inside of a Touch Designer network, and it shows you the number of milliseconds required. So basically the long green bars are things that take a long time, and it's slowing the system down. So you can see here that drawing the chop graph is actually taking a long time for some reason.
Oh, that's it. So the number of points.
So if I just turn the viewers off for these, I'm probably going to get a performance improvement. No, it's still slow.
Well, no, it's higher frame rate. It's just stretched.
Yeah. So this stuff does get pretty important when you start to get larger networks. It's all nice and fun when you're dealing with like 10 or 20 operators, but when you really start to put together a show and you've got a lot of variety of things happening at once, you can definitely run into to some performance problems. 9 times out of 10, performance problems are caused by either SOPs, which are if you're generating a lot of geometry with SOPs on the fly, that can slow things down, and renders can tend to be pretty heavy. So you want to keep render times down as much as possible. There's actually one we didn't talk about at all, which is a render pass. So if you want to do multiple renders, you can use a render pass top to reduce overhead, both in terms of memory and rendering time. It's like a whole, maybe do a whole workshop just on performance.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, sometimes your if you're GPU bound, by reducing the amount of the resolution of your compositing network, you can detect whether it's bogging down from your graphics card or your
Turn what?
Advanced display overdraw. Like if you turn that on,
Oh,
and then that's
I've never even used that.
Sorry, I just remembered that's. I mean, you could use that to analyze your render to see how many things are being displayed or rendered over on top of each other, or you could just use it as a visual
Another
effect. So some of the analyzing things in Touch double as
VJ tools.
creative.
Go figure.
Yeah, I guess my only final comment would be in terms of like getting the most out of Touch from a creative standpoint. We found that combining media from other environments like After Effects or photography or whatever, 3D Studio, and bringing those assets in can really help to make Touch Designer projects look like better. I know it's totally aesthetic. It depends on what you're into, but just in terms of from where I work and what we do and the projects that we do, that's the way that we've been able to get the most impact out of the power of Touch, is to use videos and textures from other places, because it helps to enhance all the dynamic things that you can do here, being able to play back videos at different speeds and things like that. It's and texture map objects and do 3D compositing and things like that. It's pretty powerful.
We have a shared memory interface though, and there's also
that's right.
The code is included with the Touch installation to like it's a Visual Studio project.
Yeah, here you
to
can
create where it's outlined for you how you send the image to Touch.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So you
that's
could write a plugin for a software that
Yeah.
massages
to move
the
something from jitter into touch.
Yeah. So you would write a plugin for another tool,
yes.
so that they do shared memory between them.
So these are.
Yeah.
So this is the shared memory in. It's actually, you can use it two different ways. So this is the shared memory out operator, And so what you can do is sometimes it's actually a good idea to have multiple instances of touch running on the same computer. The main reason for this is the touch actually isn't multi-threaded, so it only uses a single thread on your machine. So, like for instance, all that audio visualizer stuff that we were showing you earlier with the spectrum and the frequency bins and all that stuff, a lot of times what I would do is just build an operator, or a network that only does the audio analysis. And when you put it in perform mode, maybe it just does a tiny little box with like a little view meter or something like that. But all the output from that, those little RMS levels and all that stuff, you can send that out to another touch designer project that's running. So you can multi-thread your projects that way. So you can offload heavy CPU processing into a single thing. But anyway, the shared memory out you can do at the top. I think this will work. If I do a movie in here, I do shared memory out. So it immediately showed up in the show memory in because they're both pointing to the same shared memory name. But what Marcus is saying is that there's a C++ file that comes with the touch installation that allows you to include the code for this in your own applications. So you can create a texture from any program you want and put it into CPU memory, and then you'll be able to pull it.
CPU memory.
CPU memory.
Oh, okay, so it's a bit slow.
Is it CPU memory?
Yes,
Yeah,
but it's
it
pretty
is.
fast
Yeah.
actually.
It's pretty fast, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with chops. And the other thing I just want to point out here too is there's a C++ operator, C++ top, and you'll see here there's a DLL path. This is something we use a lot at Obscura too, where again they give you code that allows you to compile in C++ your own graphics. You can do whatever you want, and if you base it on their header and you compile it, you'll get a DLL file that you can load into here. So you can create plugins for Touch Designer. I mean, you can. It basically you just get an OpenGL rendering context, and you can do whatever you want. You can load game engines. I've gotten open frameworks to run inside of an operator. I've had Flash players that run inside operators. We've had Chrome. Right now we have a web browser that runs in here. So all the things that Touch doesn't have, they give you the tools to implement it yourself if you need to. And there's a C++ chop also. So
What you just described with audio and multi-threading, is that just like through UDP then you're sending that data to another network? Or is there
you can do that. You can do that. You can use shared memory, or I would recommend using UDP.
Yeah. And that's just with like a network chop
Yep.
or something?
Yep. There's where's it at? Where's it at?
DAT maybe? DAT, UDP, out DAT, or UDP?
Yeah.
Oh,
I actually like UDT. DATs.
What's UDP?
UDT is it's a reliable UDP implementation.
Oh, so it doesn't drop.
Yeah,
It-
but it's fast.
It's got some kind of a reverse checksum, periodic checksum that goes back to the host, and if it loses a UDP packet, it'll send it again. So it's kind of like the fastest network protocol.
Okay.
And I think you use, Steve, a lot this DAT called a touch out DAT, which sends a whole table like as is to other machines, and that's how you sync
Yeah,
data with other machines.
the most reliable and effective and fastest way to synchronize multiple computers or get information from one computer to another is definitely with the touch out DAT. So if I, let's do, just show you an example.
That is UDT.
UDT, yeah. You can actually, it's got multiple options. So, for example, on most jobs, we have something that looks like this, where you use a speed chop with a constant of 60 running into it, which is 60 hertz. So all this does is count up, and then what I would do is do a chop 2 to convert this into a DAT. And the reason why I do this is because this is a time slice, and that's why we're getting multiple things here. So usually what I would do is trim this, or use a select, and only extract the first 2 columns. So I'm basically forcing Touch Designer to only give me a single number. This is just this is what I was talking about the other day with like when time slicing isn't your friend, when you have to have a very specific number, because I only want to send out one number per frame. So now with this touch out, I'm sending it out via UDT on port 9500. On any other computer, I can just do a touch in, and it's already set up, so I'm getting that number. So you can send it out to as many machines as you want. It's
Or just even another instance.
another instance, yeah. But we've tested like every single possible way you can synchronize computers, and this has been the most reliable. So
this is like your master clock.
that's your master clock, right?
Questions? So I want to thank Steve a lot for volunteering
Yes.
to lead this workshop. I really appreciate that.